Good afternoon. My name is Uday Jain. I'm a junior at Cinco Ranch High School, and my project is a nano solution, a simple way to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. Let's take a look at this graph. As you can see, the coast of Florida is moved up and almost all of Florida is submerged. So what is this graph? Well, basically, this is a prediction of what the Earth will look like if the temperature continues to rise, because rising temperatures causes the oceans to rise and thus covering up the cities. This is important because the rising Earth temperatures are linked to one basic thing: CO2 emissions. This is because CO2 emissions have been greatly increasing for the last few centuries. And right now, they are at an all-time high and are continuing to rise even more. This is problematic for two reasons. First, as seen in the previous slide, CO2 is a greenhouse gas that contributes to the natural warming of the Earth. This becomes problematic when the CO2 levels continue to increase and the Earth continues to warm, causing the sea levels to rise. The second problem with CO2 emissions is that they are a natural pollutant, which in high concentrations can cause serious respiratory illnesses for the young and older people. And basically, CO2 emissions are being increased in one main sector: transportation. This is because vehicles such as cars, trucks, and airplanes all rely on fuel or petroleum for their engines, and that petroleum has a byproduct of CO2. That's why my project focuses on reducing CO2 emissions from vehicle transportation. So let's look at 3 existing solutions for vehicle transportation. First, you have the catalytic converter. The catalytic converter is something that's been used in new cars that reduces the amount of air pollution. However, the main problem is that while it does reduce harmful air pollution such as carbon monoxide and nitrogen oxides, which are much more dangerous than carbon dioxide, it increases the amount of carbon dioxide by converting those more dangerous gases into this less dangerous form. This becomes problematic in the long term. When you have more and more cars, the buildup of CO2 becomes a problem. The next solution is electric cars. This one's pretty obvious, as electric cars rely on electricity rather than gas. This means that they produce less CO2 on average. However, this isn't a viable solution in the short term because electric cars are not generally used that much. In fact, right now they have less than 10% of the total cars in the USA alone, and that number decreases when you look at a global scale. And finally, you have public transportation. The logic behind this is that you have less cars on the road, you have less CO2 emission. However, while this may be a good approach, it's not necessarily the end-all be-all solution, as you can't expect everyone to go everywhere using public transportation. That's why my project is a nanotube membrane that is essential to convert CO2 to methane. Basically, the membrane induces a 3-step reaction that is catalyzed by the membrane, which is made out of titanium. It then produces methane as a byproduct. This is beneficial as in cars, as methane can be used to augment the fuel already used in vehicles to accelerate the car even further on the limited amount of gas. Therefore, cars will have a double benefit of not only reducing CO2 emissions, but also allowing them to go further on the standard gas that they travel, because the methane can be used in cars, which it already is in some sort of cars. So let's look at the testing that I did. Basically, what I did is I collected gas from a from car exhaust gas from a 2015 Lexus. I chose this car as it's fairly up to date so that it's more accurate of the representation of the type of pollution that's being created by our country. Then I ran that gas through a gas chromatography machine, which basically told me the amount of each gas that's present in the sample. So I tested it before and after using the membrane. And what I saw was that there was a 73% reduction in carbon dioxide, which is extremely beneficial when you consider if every car had this on. However, what I saw was that there was no formation of methane. This is because what I had tested on before was on just on pure carbon dioxide. However, when you consider that car exhaust doesn't have pure carbon dioxide, it includes water, CH4, and nitric oxides, that the process becomes a little bit more complicated. So what happened was that methane was being consumed just as fast as it was being created. However, the simple solution of reducing CO2 emissions by 73% is great enough to merit a significant improvement. So let's look at the bigger picture. My product has a wide variety of scope. This is because CO2 emission is being released from almost everything in the world. This includes factories, vehicles, and all sorts of things. So not only can this be used in vehicles, but it can also be used in factories, where it can be used to not only reduce the CO2 emission from stacks like these, but also create more fuel that they can use. For example, an electricity plant can then use the CO2 produced from burning coal to power a power plant, to then convert that back into methane, which can also then be burned to produce more electricity. So not only are they reducing the amount of CO2 in the air, they're also allowing more electricity to be created on the 1 pound of coal that is being used. It can be also used in open air carbon capture. So right now, companies in the Netherlands and Sweden are developing what's called as open air carbon capture, which is basically where they take gas from the atmosphere and separate it into its pure forms and then store the carbon dioxide. This is really important as it reduces the amount of carbon dioxide that's in the air currently. So what right now that carbon dioxide is being used for is it's one, being stored underground, which can be dangerous if there is a leak and all that carbon dioxide is released back into the air. Or two, it's being liquidized and then used for other projects. However, if you use my project, you can then convert that pure carbon dioxide to methane, which is a better form of material to be used, as the methane can be then liquidized or pressurized and used as natural fuel or natural gas to further fuel in other places. So as you can see, there's a lot of scope for this project, but there's still some limitations, such as the size and the time that takes in order for this to be achieved. So thank you all for listening, and I'm open for questions.